Hello and welcome to Grow Conversations, your window into the world of medical cannabis here in the United Kingdom. And on today's episode, we have Stephen Murphy. Stephen is the founder of Prohibition Partners, who are behind brands such as Cannabis Health, the Business of Cannabis, but also Cannabis Europa as well. The UK's biggest cannabis conference, I think, at this point.
Yeah.
Certainly, I think one of the longest running and certainly the most prestigious B2B conference here in the UK that we have. So thank you very much for joining us. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. Yeah.
I guess to start us off, if that's okay with you, we should we can go way back because I know you've been in this space an awful long time.
Yeah.
I remember us being at the first Wednesday's networking events that were even before 2018, when it was 30, 40 people in a pub talking about an industry that was yet to be.
Yeah.
And now we're here today. You're running a conference that thousands of people come to internationally. Some of the most recognized media outlets with Cannabis Health and Business Cannabis as well. How did you get here? How did we get here?
Yeah, it's the origin story. So we first, look, I've always been a long time advocate of cannabis. I always felt it was poorly labelled, poorly represented, and mischaracterized in terms of what it was ultimately for and who wanted to use it. And I found that stigma very, very strange, all the way growing up, especially regarding our attitudes to, say, alcohol. How laissez-faire we are around alcohol. Yeah, cannabis, we had the stigma. And, the more I learned about cannabis, I was quite interested as a category. We saw what was happening kind of in North America. So I started to pay attention to North America, say 2015, 2016. We took a trip to North America and traveled around. I went from Colorado and California and other states and saw just this was a real market with active industry, active patients, active regular users, brands and so forth. And the change in perception of cannabis as a result of that normalization. And, kind of came back and tried to do a little bit of research in terms of, okay, what's happening on our front doorstep. And there was very little information as to what was actually out there. So Prohibition Partners was kind of born a little bit out of necessity originally. So I wanted to get involved in the industry. We wasn't really sure how, and there was very little information or opportunity at that time. So, we officially launched in 2017. And if you go back to 2017, we mentioned like the early networking events and so on. You could probably, this table would be the size of the UK cannabis industry back then. You had, of course, GW, but, I don't really relate them to the cannabis industry.
Separate. It was the cannabis pharmaceutical industry, and they're off to one side a little bit, aren't they?
Exactly. But the importance of that is going to be brought back into the fold. So, but however, going back to 2017, we saw there was very little understanding of what was happening. So, look, my background and what I had picked up along the way was very kind of either data and information driven, and it was really just born out of that necessity to understand, okay, what is the opportunity that is available, what is the status of the markets, and what does a ultimately regulated landscape look like.
So what was the first thing that once you sort of had done the reconnaissance, you'd sort of worked out what was going on, where the opportunities were? What was the next thing for you? I know there was ECH and then Life Group later on, but what for you was the first experiment for you in terms of actually getting stuck in?
So it was actually, we created the first European cannabis report.
Yes.
So the first, we had just published the first European cannabis report, and Canatech, which was an Israeli group, had running a conference here in 2017
I remember that,
in the Truman Brewery.
Yeah.
And it was really big.
Yeah,
it was really big.
It was really good event.
Really, really good event. And we had presented the report, and it kind of took off very quickly on the back of that. So we had quickly seen that, one, there was a demand for a level of information, but there's also a demand for networking and understanding and connection as well. So Prohibition Partners was kind of the launch pad for a lot of that. We had the desire to kind of capitalize on the growth and the early stage growth in our knowledge and become investment funds. So that's kind of where European Cannabis Holdings came out of.
Yeah.
But Prohibition Partners was essentially the launch pad. So it was our vehicle for one, understanding the market, but also understanding who is in the market as well.
And that's come a long way, hasn't it? In terms of the reports that you've been doing with Prohibition Partners, how many of you have been?
Yeah.
Do you remember?
How many I've authored is probably different. It's thankfully the quality has got a lot better since my absence on the authority of those reports. We have, we're really fortunate to have brilliant analysts within the team who have really deep, not only deep industry knowledge, but also a passion for validating the information. Because a lot of the challenges, you call up a clinic and you ask, how many patients do you have? And they'll be like, 1 million. And you're like, it's, validation in this space is a challenge.
Yes.
So, building a position of trust over time has been probably one of the main goals for us, so because any piece of misinformation and the reputation goes out the window.
Yeah.
So how many reports? I think overall we have delivered.
They're quarterly, aren't they? And it's been
and it's sector specific. We've done
of course,
pharmaceutical. We've done drinks and cannabis. We've done
exactly.
I was even saying I met one of the previous co-authors of an original EU GMP report that we did back in 2018, and that report still gets 30, 40 downloads a week. There is I think we're like maybe 50 to 60 odd reports now, which they're pretty hefty reports as well, and there's a lot of data within them. Who knows? Thankfully, AI has not caught up to the cannabis industry yet in terms of information and knowledge.
No, that's a real.
We're still the authority, if you will, or certainly one of the main sources for information. But the always on consensus was the market. Like maybe when we first started, let's just say there was like 12 legal markets around the world.
Yeah.
So we started, our first report was the Global Cannabis Report, and then we moved, or the European Cannabis Report, and then I think we did the Global Cannabis Report, and then we did LATAM and Oceania and Asia and so on. So suddenly we convinced ourselves of the need for this global always on reporting, and and the market obviously responded because there was demand for it, and it got an uptake. But when we first started, there was 10 legal markets, or 10 to 12 legal markets. Today, we're probably over 100.
Really? That many?
Yeah. Now, with a legal framework now, not including now, Ireland, for example, is a legal framework.
Yeah, sure.
Does it have legal access?
Yeah.
Well, but very much no.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, in terms of legal framework and so forth. So we have challenge on our hands in terms of ensuring that we can continue to monitor what is happening. And I think, that is where technology is certainly helping.
Yeah.
But technology only helps to a certain point. We still need human validation, and, we have, I suppose, developed the internal technology, if you will, to assist with that.
Yeah.
The market demand around data is certainly growing. I think we remain the only kind of group to provide global. Like we do a little bit in North America, but that's its own beast.
I was going to say, it's so complex.
It's so complex.
I mean, even just the States, put Canada to one side, and Mexico as well has got its own system. But the United States is, I don't know how you look at that market and start to explain what's going on there, frankly, because every state has a different situation. Some have recreational and medical, some have just medical. The idea of it being medical is very different in different states. Some have THC limits, some don't allow flower. it's a headache. I don't know how you even start to present that and sort of categorize the states.
And throw in hemp on top of it.
Oh, and then
yeah.
I'm so medical focused, I forget.
Exactly. Yeah. So we cover it. We definitely do cover it, and we have partners who cover it. But you know, we feel like directly we're better on an international level. That's kind of where our strength really is.
Yeah. Well, contrary to that, let's bring it back to a more national, to a more UK focus, if that's all right with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's talk a little bit about perhaps the difference in the market from the very, very beginning to where we are today. What's changed? What have you seen from the data? What have you seen from the industry?
I'll talk a bit, because I've probably been involved I've been involved both from a personal investment and an operator across most aspects of the supply chain.
Well, we could talk a little bit about Life Group perhaps before we talk about what's changed.
I'll mention, but I'll kind of go back. When we did our first Cannabis Europa, back in 2018, and we didn't really know. Look, there was the kind of tech here the year before, so it's not as if and there was an ICBC in Berlin, so it's not as if we're the first to do anything. I think what we tried to do there is to say, okay, if the market is going to change, it is not going to change under the communication of free the weed. Yeah. That unfortunately has not advanced cannabis. So, what works? Suit and tie. having a civil and informed discussion and debate. How do we create that? And that's kind of ultimately where the formation of Cannabis Europa came from. So we had our first one in, I think it was May in 2018, and we came out with it pretty happy in terms of the quality of speakers, the quality of content, the engagement, and so forth. But we could not have imagined that just a few months later, we were going to see a cannabis law in place.
It was 6 months to the day. It was from Cannabis Europa to the law actually changing.
Exactly. Well, that's.
I remember that conference and being blown away by it. It was the South Bank Centre, wasn't it?
That one was. That was in the Barbican. That was Barbican. The following, we went to the South Bank. We got all big.
Yeah. I was thinking, I remember that, but there is the first one in the Barbican. I remember talking to people there. But I remember coming in and walking in and just seeing these banners up the pillars saying, cannabis industry conference and things like that, and just thinking, oh, this has arrived.
Oh yeah,
For me, up to that point had been grassroots campaigning, occasional media appearances. There was some interest from the sort of general public, but there's an industry, and here it is, and it's just landed in the middle of London. So for me, that was a huge moment of just the industry arriving into the UK and being here, and this being real, frankly. Yeah. Not just an idea or something we were pushing for or campaigning for, but something that was, that had people involved in it in a professional level. And when you say suit and tie, I also just thinking, going back to the days of grassroots advocacy, that's what the organisation I was a part of, the United Patients Alliance, that's literally what we did. Yeah. I cut my hair, I put a suit on, went out into campaign, and that was an important part of it. It's a critical part. It sounds absurd, but it was necessary.
No, you needed to have a debate on regulators level where you presented you demystified and de-risked, automatic trigger of stigma.
That's exactly it.
And then that's ultimately, that's what you succeeded in achieving. So, roll around to November 2018, and we'd already created European Cannabis Holding. So, we wanted initially to become investors, and we'd raise some money and we had good partners. And the idea was, okay, we'll place capital in companies. The challenge was there's very few companies to actually place capital in. There was very little development in the space. So what we ultimately ended up doing was becoming part incubator, but also, not only incubating the companies, but growing and building. So, for an 18-month period, I think we'd started six or seven new companies over that period. And it was, we were mapping out, okay, what does the supply chain look like? How is it developing? Where are the pain points within the market, what is already existing infrastructure, what needs to be developed for the first time. And out of that, it was things like, doctor education, it was distribution, it was clinics, it was,
The Medical Cannabis Clinic.
The Medical Cannabis Clinic, yeah.
A brand name that didn't sadly last the test of time, the regulator, perhaps. But...
Well, I don't know. It should come back, to be honest.
Yeah. It was a strong brand.
I'm sure we still have the trademark down the back of the couch somewhere.
Oh, well.
But, we had the Academy of Medical Cannabis.
Yep.
We had, the first CBD bar in Europe, Nauru. Not everything stood the test of time. I think all, 90% did, but of course that was, early stage investment. And so it was an extremely intense period, but it was such a rewarding period just to see the market evolve. Like you mentioned, kind of First Wednesday or the regular meetups. There was a phenomenal energy in London during that period.
Yeah.
It was the epicenter of European cannabis.
Yeah.
It was a transit point for transatlantic trade.
North Americans coming in.
North Americans and Canadians, you go to the Mayfair Hotel any day and you'll find one of the LPs. It was a great time and place. And you of course think it's going to last forever. But it was the start, it was a great starting block. And what we're fortunate enough to still see a lot of the same faces, be involved in new ventures and new initiatives along within the industry and go on to some great things. There's been some great developments, and it hasn't always been purely cannabis, but it's either healthcare policy related.
Yep.
And it attracted some really great people, some really interesting people as well. But, by and large, I think, it's a fantastic, committed group that, once the realization that this is not going to be a 2 years in and out job.
Yeah.
And
that's what worry, I suppose, at the time.
Well, yeah.
Is this, there's a huge opportunity, but is this going to last? Are we getting involved in something that's flash in the pan, or is this something we can build?
I'm sure my wife would have liked a 2 year in and out, but it hasn't transpired to that, and as a result, you are seeing people who are committed more than a quick economic return to actually building something that has a longer, more structured and secure pathway. And it's not perfect, and we are all ultimately learning as we go. When legislation was brought in, there was no guidance, there's no, cannabis authority to say, okay, this is how we roll it out. Everything had to be built and built from the private and built privately. So, and then, of course, you're trying to do best by the patient, but your resources are stretched and so forth. So it's taken, you would say, we're in 2026. We're only, just say, 100,000 patients, and I'd say, okay, it's taken a long time to go from 0 to 100,000. But the reality is, it isn't. You are building whole new supply chains. You are, getting this new product that's had stigma for 90, 100 years into the medical profession. You are, introducing a whole new succession of companies that you want patients to trust.
Yes.
It's
a challenge in and of itself.
It's a challenge in and of itself. And I think it's actually remarkably quick what has been achieved. And I think the UK has built a very stable market. When you look at other markets, be it around Europe or around the world, I think there is the environment and the platform for the UK to have tremendous growth. Now, of course, the challenge and limitations is patient access is, of course, severely restricted, to those who have. And, we're seeing, say, in France and in other markets which have a more social healthcare system that, yes, there is a way forward. And you would hope you would hope that perhaps that is a pathway the NHS can take, because, we as an industry know that we can't wait and expect for regulation or direction to be given. We essentially have to, we have to kind of work within the existing confines and, find our way around it. But, to your point, going back, we have had to ultimately create all along the supply chain and train and educate. And, at the start, it was just pretty much raw entrepreneurs. And, and I'll say from my side, I'll be brutally honest, I am not a healthcare professional. Like, I should not have been in charge of setting up and running a clinic, and and I wasn't. I
you had a team around you.
I had a team around me, and and I just spotted the opportunities and so on, and spotted the need. But we're fortunate that we're now in a position where we're able to bring in industry experts who have that experience. So be it from pharma, or be it from distribution, or be it from healthcare, or be it from telesales, or be it from whatever the case, whatever the profession is. You're seeing a wealth of talent now come into the space and kind of bring a level of maturity, which you would hope gives regulators more confidence, which you hope give patients more confidence, and unlocks capital required for growth of the sector.
Yeah. I mean, I certainly see it in stages. Looking back at it, and I think from 2018 up until almost 2023, and maybe even a little bit beyond, or at least into 2023, it's almost like the growth stage. We're not really at a point where this was and I think part of the reason it took so long in terms of that patient growth and the numbers getting to where they are today, I think we didn't have the supply chain set up in a way that was as stable as we would like, was consistent as we would like. We didn't have the range of products available. Also think as the range and quality of products has increased, costs have come down. The general experience that from a patient point of view has shot up from, and I think didn't up until sort of 2023. I think it was quite, I don't use the word stagnant. It was slow, and it was getting better, and it was increasing slowly. But I know it was extremely expensive at the very, very beginning, and certainly, I mean, that excluded a lot of people. We've got to a point where we're now competitive in terms of pricing with, wherever else patients are sourcing their medication, and that's a huge factor as well, of course. So we are at a point now that I think things are really scaling up. What's the challenge there?
Well, patient experience at the start was horrendous.
Not great.
It was truly horrendous, because, I don't put that. I think there's multiple factors for that, but I would remember picking up a prescription, getting on a plane with a pharmacist, going to the Netherlands, flying back with that prescription,
that whole day,
and getting it to the patient. That is obviously extremely frustrating for the patient, but the cost of actually doing that, we were losing hand over fist of getting, so that was a way in which to establish the market, but it cost us dearly in terms of actually going out and being, one of the first to go about. Now, we're joined by others, but, it takes a whole team, or it takes a village. But going back to, how it has established today, you have a wealth of doctors across a whole range of conditions that have a layer of expertise and understanding, and it's a little bit more integrated, so some clinics are in the NHS spine system, some clinics are associated with other conditions, and cannabis is becoming a little bit more integrated into healthcare opposed to just the standalone. Access is worked by patients who may not have been able to travel can now get access, and that's massive. That was
the fallout from COVID, that we actually have video consultations. So that changed overnight. No one is expecting it. Obviously, no one was expecting a pandemic, but then certainly during the pandemic, and because of the need for healthcare generally, nothing to do with the cannabis industry, the government saying, well, video consultations, and to have the technology for that as well, Zoom coming up at that time, the perfect storm for us to then become, to be able to facilitate much more freely to patients who are, across the country. Up until that point, people were coming to London for face-to-face consultations. yeah, I mean, the practicality was a huge factor. So that was huge.
And then of course, okay, so you've got like, then you match it up. You've got the patient, you have the doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Where's the product?
Yeah.
and that has changed significantly. Like understanding. I talked about the EU GMP report. Like understanding. Oh, how do we actually land product here? What is the product we can land? How much can we land? Where do we store it? Who's storing it? Oh, special license. Okay, tell us more about that. And it sounds extremely basic and fundamental, but that's where those were the questions at the time, and we are seeing now, we're seeing this understanding from clinics and doctors of their patient needs.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result, traveling the world, they are finding medicines that, will better support the patient's needs, because, a range of 5 or 10 products unfortunately is too limiting.
Mm-hmm.
When you have, and as the patient grows and as the patient develops and, how they respond as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we're getting better, I think, at one, having range, but also consistency. How often have you had to change medicine because it's no longer, available?
All the time. Less and less, though.
Would that happen with any other pharmaceutical products?
No, but then you do have the range. I suppose, to play devil's advocate, you wouldn't have, like we have hundreds of different flower medications. I somewhat accept that I won't necessarily get the same one month on month, but that I will have something similar that I can look to, and I can talk to a clinician about and find out and say, well, this is out of stock at the moment. And the clinician will be like, well, actually, we have this and this and that, similar price point, similar terpene profile, and you can slot it in. But certainly back in the day, something would go out of stock. I mean, we still have that to an extent with some forms of medication. For example, with the balanced flowers, there just isn't as many balanced flowers in the market. So when one goes out of stock, we're like, well, who else has got one? Where are we going to get that from? Who do we buy it from? How does that work? Is it going to be twice as expensive as it was on my last script? So we're getting there. There's still a ways to go, but you're right. I think that the comparison that you wouldn't have this level of inconsistency with pharmaceuticals. Although, that said, I am prescribed other things outside of cannabis, and there is one particular drug, I won't name it, that I just cannot get for love or money at the moment. I can buy it over the counter at Boots, but I can't get it on prescription. I don't understand that, but there we go.
Okay.
So I think, there's two sides to it. I totally agree that the consistency has improved, and that was a significant problem. But I also do think you do get supply chain issues in the broader pharma world as well. So we shouldn't beat ourselves up too much, I guess. And the cannabis side of things, whilst we should do everything we can to ensure consistency.
No, it's not. It's. I think it's just a case of striving to try and improve every day a little bit more.
Absolutely.
And there's, look, professionally and personally, it's where you want to be in life as well. You want to have that pressure because you feel it's more rewarding.
So how does Cannabis Europa as a conference change direction slightly? How does this facilitate the industry getting a little bit better every day? And what's the experience of coming to Cannabis Europa for, let's say there's somebody out there who's just joined a cannabis company for the first time and are thinking about attending? Why would you want to come to Cannabis?
So we've always used this as a platform for, for change and for providing some level of direction. We've been fortunate enough to take Cannabis Europa around the world. We've done events in Paris and Madrid and New York, but London is where we always kind of see home. And the reason for that is because of the role London plays, one, as a world capital, but also two, as a centre for policy, for pharma and healthcare, for finance, for creativity and so on, all of these, and communications, all these things that are fundamental for the evolution of cannabis itself.
Yeah.
So, we see Cannabis Europa as kind of a platform for getting new voices in cannabis. And what we mean by that is, those who have maybe a general interest, and that could be from the finance world. So we have, we have an awful lot of banks and finance groups now. And again, this is the same for a lot of these brands and groups. They may not put it on their label just yet. Some are changing, but we have banks from, the city in Canary Wharf. We have major brands. We, non-cannabis, we have major pharmaceutical companies. all, even those from tobacco and alcohol who all have their headquarters in London, all come and observe, engage, and so forth. Right? They scope it out. And that's changing. And we're seeing it. We're seeing that more we need traditional sectors and expertise and funding for this transformation of cannabis. It is silly to think that we can grow in isolation and we stay in a vacuum. So a main part of Europa is to try and open up cannabis to the non-believers, if you will. Sure. And, and convert those. And I think we've been fortunate that we've had an awful lot of conversion over the years, and we see that with the growth of the industry. And then secondly is to facilitate really curated conversations on main challenges we face as an industry. So whether that is across the supply chain, whether that is from a regulatory basis or a finance basis, there are certain elements and issues that, you could look. In the early days, you could probably run a Cannabis Europa every week, such was the level of issues we had. Whereas now cannabis is growing. It's a little bit more major. So there is wider conversations that take place in terms of how do we, are we at a maturity level where we need to start self-regulating more? Mm-hmm. Are we at a position where, how do we respond to, the challenges regarding still lack of NHS? How do we, how do we get around the lack of funding and open up funding and so forth? How have we, have we moved on from X, Y, and Z in terms of core issues? And that level of curated conversation and conversations has helped us kind of continuously attract the key decision makers and C-suite of most, organizations within the cannabis space. Mm-hmm. And that in turn, has a watered down effect because of course everybody wants to connect with, the CEO of Village Farms
it's great networking for, on the face at the very simplest level. It's like, I love turning up at Cannabis Europa, seeing all the old faces, the people I might not have seen since the last Cannabis Europa, since last year's conference. And that alone is for me, worth turning up for. But yeah, as you say, bringing new people in as well and bringing them into the fold.
Yeah, of course. And look, at the end of the day, it's a business, it's a B2B conference. You want business to be done. You want
to be striking deals around.
Yeah, and we're fortunate. We track all this every year, and every year we've seen a significant increase in terms of deals closed or partnerships formed and so forth. And but we feel we get that by going content heavy first, and we, organically things will work around it. I'm not a cannabis promoter.
And we're not there shouting about it. It's not a recreational conference by a long stretch.
No. And I think it's, look, there's a time and place for absolutely everything, but it's European. It's a little more understated. It's, I was going to say British. It's more Irish, but no, we have I think the approach we've tried to harness with Cannabis Europa is it's more about just the quality of people there. That is the focus. That's the headline is the delegates at it. It's not some high profile celebrity,
You've had a few celebrities though, haven't we? Had a few. Andrew Neil at one point.
We had Andrew Neil, as a moderator.
He was very good actually.
He was great. Yeah. We have. Look, it's not saying we haven't had high profile individuals. We've had lots of high profile individuals. We've had great musical guests, like we had Lise at a previous one and so on. But that's not the
It's not the focal point. You're not building a conference around celebrities, around these people.
Yeah. It's for us, that is just an addition of maybe some of the content, but ultimately it comes down to the caliber of the individuals, and are these individuals those who are actually going to take on the challenge of growing the sector? And you've fortunately participated and been at it, and I think it is. Yes, we're still a small industry, but we are ultimately, the level of conversations and understanding and, creativity around tackling challenges is improving, and that's great.
Can you give us a bit of I don't want to spoilers to this year's conference, but can you give us a sneak peek of who's going to be speaking, what sort of topics we're going to be covering?
Yeah, look, it's going to be, Germany dominated. Yeah, well, it will be because it's the largest market by far. It is. In terms of it's developing. I was
going to say, tell the viewers what's going on in Germany, because they might not know. We do have people watching who may not be, Germany since Pillar 2, has seen a spike in growth as a result of telemedicines. Has been, they have been able to manipulate, if you will, the EU framework, where you have non-German doctors prescribing in a very convenient manner, and estimates are around 1.1 to 1.2 million patients. Wow.
And it is not seeing any sign of slowing down. Now you have the Christian Democrats coming in with the threat of ultimately changing regulation. On the grapevine, that's not happening. That's already being mothballed. Right. They have other fires to put out.
There's plenty of other things to be worrying about.
They are seeing, okay, we've opened up this kind of worms, so to speak, but it is not the be-all and end-all of what we thought it was. It is moving people away from the illicit market. We're getting people into a regulated system. We are generating economic return from it, and we are servicing a patient and public need.
Yeah, there's no huge societal.
No. And you see the studies coming from Health Canada. Yeah, and you're like, look, when we say we don't have the data, we actually have a significant amount of data, and we've the data from we've data from Germany as a result of, was it last week, which again showcased the compliance within the market, the response from patients, positive response from patients, and so forth.
So what came out last week? Sorry?
So there was the Eurocan or Eurobudcan from Germany, which was basically their internal review of what was happening, what the response rates from patients, the conditions that were being tackled, the drop off rates and so forth, and overwhelmingly positive in terms of, one, the positive patient's response in terms of response to their condition and their condition improving. Two, in terms of the convenience within the supply chain, so satisfactory around pricing and so forth. But it's also looking at kind of the reimbursement angle as well. So obviously when Germany started, it was predominantly reimbursement from BfArM. That has changed significantly now with telemedicines and these private platforms popping up, that the majority of this is private.
Yeah. It was some insurance coverage, basically.
There was some, yeah. So either, national or private, but private would be reimbursed regardless. That is, when a lot have now gone off that pathway and gone to private, where, they have greater flexibility, if you will, on pricing and product availability and so forth.
Yeah. You're getting a more broad.
So going back to your question, what does this year's policy hold? Well, there's a number of angles. Okay, look, we're reaching a point where transatlantic conversations are starting to reappear. Yep. You've got the Organogram Sanity BAT deal. Yep. You have Remexian High Tide. You have Tilray and Life.
I was going to ask you. We'll touch that later.
And it's, look, you look at the scope. Okay, we've 100,000 patients in the UK. There's 2.5 million patients in the UK, and this is for a market. This is for a product that we already know. This is not expanding the market to where it actually could be. So we're saying, okay, we're going to go from 100,000 to 2.5. It's a significant growth.
Oh yeah,
it's a significant growth opportunity. You have established companies who have ultimately done a lot of work with pennies, who've been quite restricted and have found a way around it. And then these guys are on the prospect of rescheduling in the US, going, okay, we've the opportunity to play. What is out there? And saying, oh, there is tremendous opportunities across Europe, that there's a vibrant market, so there is a shift in cultural and political landscape, and that is definitely one of the key themes in terms of, okay, where is the next drivers coming ultimately from? How does, from a German perspective, what role, Germany has been still very inward looking.
Yes.
But they're starting to expand the tentacles. So what role does Germany have in a European landscape? Like, look, this whole, the review of Pillar 2 was ultimately going to, regarding using doctors from abroad, it was going to have to be referred to EU court. You've got lots of conversations going on at the EU level, while France, and this is a really important one, and we will have a French panel and French delegation there, and French executives, while France confirms its program and its reimbursement of a program expected, I think, in July. Mm-hmm. We will be looking at, okay, we're getting to a point now where we're going to see some level of EU policy around governance and trade. So it's, it may be a European Council for Cannabis, it may be a European Office for Cannabis. What can be done from a regulatory perspective on these levels, and BFARM have cannabis, a cannabis office management. Obviously, Netherlands has one. Mm-hmm. Poland has one per se. The UK should have an office for cannabis management and so forth.
Still waiting.
So yeah. But these are kind of key things that we're looking obviously to solve. So we're trying to address commercial obviously opportunity. We're trying to address patient access. We're trying to address key regulatory issues. We're fortunate, to have, again, the main speakers, but also, the key individuals who have also switched over into cannabis. So say we have, former Brewdog exec who has been through a regulated market and is bringing a fresh approach, you would hope, to cannabis, and his experience and what crossover, what learnings can we have. You have different ministers, foreign ministers, showcasing how they have kind of approached it, some of the things they are doing on a state level. You have obviously the main kind of leaders of MSOs and in North America giving their kind of global perspective, and that leads to, and then of course you've got scientists and experts talking about, okay, look, we are still wrapped up in Cannabis 1.0.
Yeah,
Cannabis 2.0 is actually here. This is what Cannabis 2.0 looks like. This is what Cannabis 3, like, we are so concerned with only looking at 2 years down the line.
Yes.
Okay, we're 2 years down the line.
What's the next thing?
Well, thinking beyond 2 years in a space, we've not had the luxury of that.
True.
But you go and you speak to a pharma company, or you speak to any,
they'll have an R&D pipeline decades long.
Exactly
that.
And what can we learn from that, and how do we adopt that in now that we have a little bit of stability, to ensure better patient experience, to ensure better patient access, to so on and so forth.
I just want to touch on the phrase Cannabis 2.0, because I know exactly what you mean, but I don't know that those watching will know exactly, because it sounds like, what do you is this a synthesized thing? Is this a pharmaceutical thing? What does Cannabis 2.0 look like to you? What does that mean?
I think it's just the commonality of cannabis within society. So
sure.
It's
not about the sort of the next, as we talk about it, the next wave of products. So I guess Cannabis 1 would be flour and oils.
Exactly, yeah. Whereas Cannabis 2.0 is the transformation of cannabis into new formats and products, of course, so look, there is going, everything from there's everything from weight loss to sleep to etc. will be either cannabis based, cannabis infused, whatever the case may be, but it will be integrated and normalized as another market good.
Yeah.
You will see the integration of cannabis into consumer goods in a more, normal way, where it's not want to get high scenario, but articulating the other benefits of cannabis. And I think that's, and then our actual understanding of the plant and the integration and export of that plant into everyday use. That's the where, we're looking at the cannabis flower in the addressable market for the existing consumers of cannabis, those who are transforming or translating from the illicit market. And we're like, okay, that's the cannabis user. But the reality is there's a much larger addressable market for cannabis products than what we currently have. And I think we are, when I say we're looking 2 years down the line, if you're looking 10 years down the line and you are, just say you're an alcohol brand, you have a cohort, you have a demographic, and that's who you've been serving. Now, their needs have changed.
Yes. But
they're still the same audience, so to speak. So how do you innovate for their needs? Well, you have a product, you have you have something that could be enhanced and to facilitate. And they may have never experienced this before, may never even considered, cannabis. And I think that's an exciting part for us, where we are probably looking a little bit too small on where the potential for this is. And look, you've been in this what feels like a long time, and it is a long time.
We're both very old.
Yeah. And but the reality is it's a very short,
very short window. This is what you're saying.
Very, very, very short window.
Yeah. In the grand scheme of an industry. I mean, you could talk about the, and I think that's what's so unique about cannabis in a lot of ways, is that there's very few things in terms of natural resources, in terms of sort of commodities, in terms of products, where there's so much exploration left to do. And you can make the comparison with the alcohol industry. I mean, we were developing beers thousands of years ago and all these different spirits not quite so long ago. And you've got the modern era refinement things. You get Jack Daniels mixed with Coke in a can. And, there's been products that have come out, within the last 10, 20 years that as that for an example, I hope we might have to bleep Jack Daniels out and get sued. But, well, hopefully the alcohol industry won't mind engaging with cannabis, but, and certainly are already. But so you've just got so much unexplored space with this plant that can do so many different things.
Yeah, and look, this is where getting the North American audience in is really important, because they have 10 plus years on us. Yeah, and they have scale. Yeah. And they have, they've brought, you go to a legal market, and if you are a cannabis consumer, a cannabis fan, it is a kid in a candy store in terms of what is available.
It is like traveling to the future.
Maybe a kid in a candy store and cannabis systems, good.
I know what you're saying. Yeah, I'm not talking literally there, but I know, I appreciate what you're saying. It is, you go to places like California, and it is like you've stepped into the future.
It's demonstrating the consumer need. They're not building this market in blind faith. There's an understanding, and
you have cannabis shops that look like the Apple Store. Versus, I'm in my head, I'm comparing them to the coffee shops of Amsterdam, which I, have a personal affinity for, but certainly are, no disrespect to those who might be watching from those markets, but a little bit dingy, a little bit grey area, a little bit non-commercial, should we say?
Yeah, I think they're fixed on a specific.
Yeah, exactly. They're not looking beyond.
Exactly.
People smoking cannabis.
Yeah, and this is what I mean by growing the addressable market.
Yeah, exactly that. It's not going to be something that your mum of a certain age is going to engage in. Well, maybe, but I don't know about your mum, but my mum's never going to go into an Amsterdam coffee shop, I don't think. I would love that to not be the case, but I think if I'm honest with myself, but I think if you presented it in the way that it's presented in places like California, in some of the more progressive medical markets, I think and the Cannabis 2.0, it's not flower anymore, but it's it might be a vaginal suppository, a pessary, a topical, you name it. I think that's all on the way, isn't it?
And cannabis may not even be mentioned in the sentence.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Cannabis might be a part of some products that you wouldn't necessarily knew had cannabis in. You wouldn't necessarily feel it when you consume it, but it, you look at the ingredients, like, oh, pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, and that's where that's, I think, what we need to we need to kind of move and push for, because where it's just synonymous and it's just it's no longer a USB.
It's no longer this taboo thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's key as well. I want to touch on it because you mentioned it in passing, and I know because you were heavily involved in Life Group. I'm really interested in getting your thoughts on the Tilray deal and how that's, because I think I found out last week before. It's really fresh.
Yeah. So Life, the history of Life was kind of what we had done at the end of 2019 is we had all of these assets. So we had doctor education, we had distribution, we had clinics, we had sourcing and so forth. We ultimately wrapped them all up into one entity called Life. And, I kind of, there's only so many hours in the day, so I kind of stepped away from running it. But yeah, it was announced when on Thursday or
Yeah. Hot off the press.
Yeah. So,
we're filming on the 22nd of April, by the way. I don't know when this is going to come out, but yeah, it might be a little less fresh.
Well, hopefully before Cannabis Europa, because you still have time to buy your tickets.
Yes, we'll definitely get this out before.
Yeah. So it's again, it's an asset that is almost ready built insofar as there's a team there. There is, in terms of there is a supply chain built out. There is an understanding of the market. There's not too many assets in the UK.
No.
So, they're not going to buy Curaleaf. They're not going to, buy certain parts. And for them, and like most producers, what you're seeing is they actually want, fully vertical, or certainly they want to have a way at doing the last mile.
Yeah.
They're seeing that as one of the most important parts to protect their margin, but also to ensure consistency of offtake and everything else that is so vital for these companies. So the asset and the type really suited Tilray's needs. Now I'm not sure what Tilray have here. I'm not sure of what was in Life. There's another history to what happened in Life that, and me and so forth. So it's, we didn't, what the original shareholders and founders of Life set out, had changed an awful lot over the last few years. They're just challenges and so forth of the market. But, to see Life to see the patients and the staff of Life go into a new format and structure is great, because, nobody wants to see the demise, or nobody wants to see, the reputational damage of an industry loss, or, a decline of an industry partner. I think that's always, there's competition, but nobody is, and competition is meant to keep, rise all boats, but you don't want to see someone go down. And I think that's really, really positive that, suddenly you've got Tilray here. They have a lot of North American media presence.
Yeah. I think it links in very well with what you've been saying so far, really, which is the North American, reaching into the UK, that sort of barrier being broken.
Yeah. Like, and then look, Simon Irwin is he's a very good promoter.
Yes.
And for other UK cannabis, certainly independent cannabis companies, it doesn't set a good benchmark, and I don't know the deal terms. So, I can't talk to the specifics of what the terms are, but it showcases a demand for UK assets. It highlights the growth of the UK market, and it brings in maybe a little bit more security for UK patients who were, maybe with Life and so on, and partnered with Life and Life's partner. So overall, it's a really, really positive. You have to look at it as it's a positive.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I appreciate your view on that as well, because like I say, if it's I know it's a bit personal, it's a bit of it's your history, but also seeing these things continue. I mean, the lights are still on, the things are still rolling, and everything's still still doing its thing, which is
Look, and you can look at it personally and so on, and you can look at it financially, but the reality is, at the end of the day, there's individuals there who are reliant on the platform for their healthcare. There's religions for people who are reliant on the platform for their livelihood and so forth, and for their career. So it's great, and it's great to see that there is this transformation, and hopeful growth, because you do need, more players in the market to drive awareness and drive dominance. Like, look, we can go out and walk the streets today. Maybe 1 in 10 knows it's legal.
Yeah.
And this is 2018.
So I know we're running out of time a little bit here, but I'd love to very briefly get a little bit of insight about both cannabis health and business of cannabis. They're an integral part of my life. I keep up with what's going on in the industry via these outlets. How did they come about, and what exactly are they doing, I suppose?
Yeah, so cannabis health and business of cannabis were kind of additions to the portfolio. Really, we saw the need for an always-on informed conversation and news flow, and so the audiences were shifting. So Business of Cannabis has kind of grown into a very much a B2B news portal, and our audience is we cover global, but it's European and North America, and we have kind of seen traffic grow month on month consistently for the last 36 months, on the platform. And all that comes down to Ben Stevens and his team. Like, it's got absolutely nothing to do with me. And the same for cannabis health. Cannabis health was an important one because we, just actually going back to like Business of Cannabis, we wanted to, we wanted to give a really informed conversation as to what is happening in the industry and give rise incredible, journalism and insight as well as data as to the market. So, what a new bill means for the market and insight into that, profiling some of the speakers and leaders in the space, highlighting some of the key issues, and doing so, on a daily basis. So we found that was, there was platforms out there, but they're focused maybe on an individual country or a specific angle. Whereas we saw that it's a global village, but it's also we wanted to bring that level of power, knowledge and network into one place. So Business of Cannabis has just grown from strength to strength. We have done some events under Business of Cannabis. We have the awards show under Business of Cannabis, and it's a really recognized and trusted name, but it produces really good news, and again, it's a free resource.
Yeah.
Like, so we could put up a paywall, we could do all that, but from our mind, and it's why we try and keep all our reports for free and so forth, it is an all ships rise scenario. You can't grow the industry by putting up a moat around it.
Sure.
And then cannabis health, it kind of comes back. Cannabis health kind of comes back a little bit to the days of when we had to set up the Academy of Medical Cannabis and that of, okay, there is some information out here, but one, it's very misleading. Two, it's not validated. So cannabis health, the audience behind cannabis health is a little bit B2B, but it's more healthcare professionals who actually engage with it. So it's understanding everything from what's happening, on the latest research, insights into patient care, insights into policy. It's insights into, insights into the healthcare experience. So cannabis health has transformed more into be it some layer of patient advocacy, of course, because we want to ensure the best patient experience, but certainly more education for healthcare professionals, and to try and integrate cannabis more within healthcare. So we had our first symposium in London last year, and we'll return again this year. Soon to be announced. Where look, we had at that we had a couple of hundred, but we had I think there was 78 doctors who had never prescribed before.
Yeah.
And, you only
That's
need...
a lot as well.
It's a lot of non-prescribers. Like, with lots of prescribers there.
Yeah, lots of the current...
With non-prescribers there. And that's... okay, it doesn't sound like a big number, but
those
the
guys
reality
are gold
is...
dust, frankly. I mean, from a position of someone who works in a company that is trying to bring more doctors into this space, every one is worth their weight in gold.
Exactly. So it's an important platform, we feel, for trying to help, education inform the market. So look, if you look at, ultimately, if you kind of boil down, all right, what is Prohibition Partners? What does it do? We always say it's two things. One, it's knowledge. So we've the knowledge in terms of what's happening in the industry and so forth. And then we've the network as well. Because we've been around, because, we have these different platforms, we know individuals and we know the teams and groups. And our kind of job is network and knowledge, bring them together. And whatever that creates, that creates.
Love that. Network and knowledge. If it's right, before we round off, I want to do something we haven't done before on Grow Conversations.
Okay.
A little bit of a quick fire round.
Shoot.
Because you are, I mean, and you've shown us you are, probably one of the most clued up, most connected people in this
Absolutely
space.
Not.
You're very modest, but no, I think it's pretty evident that you've been a linchpin in this since the very beginning, and the work that you've done has made a massive difference. I've also personally wanted to take a moment to say thank you for your contribution.
Absolutely not nonsense.
No, I mean, we talk about, the doctors are gold dust, the patients are very important. The industry is what it is, good and bad, and there's wonderful people in it. But there's few people who've stuck with it from 2018, even before 2017, before it was even legal, up to the present day, and have had such a significant impact in terms of, like you say, knowledge and network. And I think there are a few who could make the claim that they've built this industry from the ground up quite in the way that you have. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll
take that.
The nice part, sorry, I'll give you the quick fire questions now. So we'll only do 4. We'll make them nice and quick answers, if you will. Biggest misconception about the industry?
That it is full of, stoners and cannabis enthusiasts. That it's actually full of genuine people who feel the needs that, we're on this planet for a very short time, and we have an opportunity to give back something really meaningful by improving, society for the better. And this is one way we feel like we have the ability to do that.
Beautifully put. I love that. Most underrated opportunity in the cannabis industry?
Probably distribution. I think distribution is still really limited, and there is only a finite amount of groups who have really cracked that, and it's going to become invaluable.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. One thing the UK is getting right. It's going to be one thing. It's going to be at least one thing.
I think there is a good quality of patient care. I think it is actually, if you look at us to other markets, there is obviously a call for improved standards and so on, but that's the exception and not the exception. I think overall, you go through a lot of clinics and so forth. There's actually a high level of patient care that's there.
There's different clinics for different sort of different patient needs, different sort of requirements or desires out of a clinic. But certainly, I think you're quite right on that fact. One thing we're getting completely wrong here in the UK.
One, I think a lack of social protection.
Yes. I'm glad you said that. This is the sort of thing I'm working on very, very diligently.
Yeah.
But yes, in terms of patients out in the real world, the stigma, the discrimination, is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, and reimbursement.
Oh yes, certainly.
I think the natural discrimination of cannabis, it's covered in other markets.
Yeah.
Why
can't we have a system here?
Why can't we have a system here?
Yeah, it's a good point. Insurers, why are insurers not covering?
There is the data.
Yeah, exactly. Perfectly put. Okay, look, one last thing from you. Not a quick fire round, but where can we find out more about Cannabis Europa? Where can we get our tickets? I've got mine already.
Fantastic.
I'm looking forward to it. But for those who are watching.
Yeah, so I'll go to the camera. 25th and 26th of May at the Barbican in London. We will have anywhere between 1,200, 15,000 people or 1,500 people participate. CannabisEuropa.com. It is, I think if you are genuinely interested in the industry, want to grow your business, want to learn more, look, everything costs, coming to London, coming to the experience. it's not cheap. It's not cheap for anything. But one meeting, one interaction, one face-to-face changes everything. And this is what I always say about any event. And I've been fortunate to travel to events all over the world. You only need one meeting to make it all worthwhile. And for me, look, I think we have tried to put on an event where you get the biggest opportunity to come away with a fantastic, wealth of knowledge, but also, meet really informed, educated people who can take you to the next step of whatever that may be.
Absolutely. For those who are looking to get stuck into the cannabis industry,
exactly,
there is no better place. Thank you so much, Stephen, for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. I feel like I've learned a huge amount. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you all for watching. We'll be back with another episode of Grow Conversations very, very soon. Make sure to get your ticket to Cannabis Europa. I will see you there, and we'll see you next time.